Your top stories at 9 o'clock. Disturbing images of the Durban and Coastal Mental Health Institute in KZN have emerged. These images show a dire state of affairs with a leaking roof, several broken toilets, and none of the air conditioning units working. Details in just a moment. Tshwane has warned defaulting payers to pay up or face their electricity and water supply interrupted. Of late, the city is on a drive to recoup more than 1.5 billion rand that's owed to them. On the continent, in Madagascar, the death toll from Cyclone Batsirai has now risen to 120, with thousands left homeless. Plus, U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to hold a phone discussion with Russian President Vladimir Putin later today. You're now with Newsfeed AM. I'm Ayanda Nyati. Great to be in your company on the Saturday, the 12th of February. There's plenty taking place in the news cycle, but we begin this hour in KwaZulu-Natal because concerning images of the Coastal and Durban Mental Health Facility have emerged following an oversight visit by a member of the KZN legislature. The facility appears to be in a shambolic state with pictures depicting a leaking roof, broken toilets, neglected infrastructure and uncut grass. Our reporter Nkosikona Duma has been tracking the story for us. He joins us now live with the details. And Nkosikona, perhaps for those who aren't following the story as closely as you are, let's begin with you detailing just the condition of this facility.
Well, the Durban and Coastal Mental Health Facility has attracted negative media scrutiny, and this is because that facility, which is supposed to cater for people who suffer from mental health related issues, people who need great health care assistance, and they finding themselves living in a facility that appears to be, as you put it, in a shambolic state, neglected infrastructure, a dirty facility that is unable to meet their needs. But I want to bring in a board member who's just going to speak to us about this particular matter. Her name is Lizel Mool. Lizel, it's a devastating state when you look at the condition of the Durban and Coastal Mental Health Facility. Why has it become like that?
It's a long and difficult story. I think what happened is people came and maybe thought that they could get some money out of the situation. I think it was about 2018. It's difficult to tell exactly how they got in, but it seems that, they threatened to go to court and they took over the board. And from there, things just started going from bad to worse, bad financial decisions, not keeping records correctly, etc. And then your funders leave, things go wrong. If you hand out contracts that people can't afford to pay, these are things that really hurt an organization, and that's what's happened at DCMH. Bad financial decisions, can't pay for caring, can't pay for food, can't keep the place looking good, and I think that's what's destroyed it.
Now, Lizel, I understand that the facility is supported by two departments in KwaZulu-Natal, particularly the Department of Social Development, which gives an amount of about 13 million rand per annum. The Department of Health, we are told that it gives the facility about 9 million rand. So what has been their role in providing oversight and ensuring that the funds are actually used the way they're supposed to be used?
So I hear that in the past, every month reports were sent, etc., etc. I can't comment from before the time that I joined last year, but I think not enough oversight was done. And then in May last year, when the story broke very badly, before that it had already been public, the Department of, I think it was Social Development, sent a delegation to the Sherwood home. There are 7 homes, so she saw that home. She was appalled at what she saw, and from there the Department of Health actually sent a team of investigators to investigate what was happening. So this investigation has happened over many months. Lawyers and a team from the Department of Health and Department of Social Development were on site. They did this report, and now we wait to see what happens with that report. It's all good and well we do an investigation, but do we implement it? They found a lot of yes, and we're now waiting to see, are things going to change? And that's why I want to leave the board. We're going to resign. The other lady who's with me as well, because we find that these things are happening, but is there any change? So
What has been your role in the board? And I'm talking about the board in itself, because I understand this is an NPO, but it is, of course, linked to the states. It is an NPO that is funded through taxpayers' money. The board itself, what role has it played in providing oversight?
I feel like for me personally, I've done very little. You know, I've tried hard to investigate what's going on, to make recommendations, but I feel like I've wasted my time, to be honest. The board says we're doing lots of things. I don't know. You know, when I go visit, last week I visited again and I see all the bed bugs, etc., and I feel like, have we actually done anything? You know, we hired a new CEO and the rest of the board really pushed for that, and then afterwards I was so saddened to get messages from people saying, did you notice he was a friend of the other board members, etc. So I don't know, I feel like I've done nothing. You know, we've tried to fix roofs here where we can, paint, do things, but I don't have the legal background and the gumption to fight such a big problem, you know. And I don't know, maybe the board wants to change things. I don't know. I feel like we're just paddling water, you know. Yeah.
No, let's leave it here, Lisa. Thank you so much for your time. Well, and I will tell you that she did mention a particular report that was, of course, given to government officials here, particularly the Department of Social Development. I'll tell you that details from that report do suggest that this particular subjected to poor, management. It has the allegations of nepotism, of financial mismanagement, as Lizel has mentioned. And I'll also tell you, Ayana, that we are scheduled to speak to officials from the Department of Social Development here in KwaZulu-Natal for their response on the matter.
Really concerning state of affairs there. Nkosakona Duma live to us from Durban. Nkosakona, once again, thanks very much indeed. More news on the go for you now. The ANC Vembe and Mopani regions in Limpopo will hold their regional general councils today. That's to draw up a roadmap for branches ahead of the provincial and national conferences. They also pronounce on candidates for the upcoming provincial conference. In fact, Newzroom Afrika's Pilani Pakhadi is tracking this story for us, but he's live to us from our Johannesburg studios this morning. Great to see you as always, sir. Let's begin perhaps with just framing the importance of the story and perhaps help us understand how contested these 5 positions are within that province.
Well, if you ask me the same question during January 8, I would say, well, it so seems that the Stan Matawata slate is just dominated. He himself remaining as chair for the 3rd time, and as well as Florence Radzilani retaining a position as deputy secretary. But then the secretariat position from Soviet Al-Khanyane may at the time have been shifting away with Denim Caesar touted to be coming back from treasurer to that particular position, and deputy secretary that is being the former secretary of Mopani, that is Paskop Makamo. So I would have thought that that at the time would have been the case. But now it so seems that all the top 5 positions will be contested, with the top 4 heavily contested. I'm talking about the deputy chairpersonship. I do know that there could be some interest from one Dr. Namani Dixon Masemolo, who's the current MEC for infrastructure in that particular province. He's also having been in the province for quite some time. He has been in that politics for a very long time. And Soviet Al-Khanyane, of course, I believe that he would also not want to go down without a fight, still trying to ensure that he goes back to that particular position of secretariat. So the top 4 positions in itself, with Florence Radzilani as well in the deputy chairpersonship being contested all the way down to the treasurer. So who will be emerging is what the branches and the regions currently are beginning to talk about.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind, Pilani. Yeah. So perhaps let's take a few steps back. What are the positions being contested, and why is it that the contestation itself has gotten a whole lot more heated now than it was a few months ago?
Well, because there has been pronouncement by the current chairperson, that is Stan Matawata, about the support for Cyril Ramaphosa for second term. Yes. Some other people say, well, we were not consulted as far as that is concerned. We don't know anything about it. And we are still going to be deliberating with the branches and regions, and they will then bring up a slate. Of course, that is the process of the African National Congress, that the BGMs and as well as the RGCs will sit, and then at the elective conference of the province, perhaps there will be pronouncements from there, so that they can, if at all, they can move with one unison voice to the national conference later on in December. But at this date, it so seems that the regions are coming through to say, but we are also not part of this. Waterbeck is yet to hold its elective conference. So they feel that nobody is coming through to talk on their behalf. Only when they have a new collective will they then be able to say, but we are also forwarding this particular name. And they feel that the slate, which is currently doing the rounds on social media and on the corridors, they are not being represented in that particular slate. It being the chairperson as Stan Mathabatha, he's from Sekhukhune. The deputy chairperson, Florence Razilani, she's from Vembe. The secretary will be Denim Caesar, according to the slate,
right.
And he's from the Sekhukhune area. And you do find the deputy secretariat position, which is Baskop Makam, is from Mopani, and the treasurer currently is Denim Caesar. He's like I've already said, he's also from Sekhukhune. So in that slate, there was a lady, I just forgot her name, who was being touted for the treasurer position, and she is also from the Makado area. So now that in itself gives you an indication that the Waterberg area, Mogalakwena, all itself, and Lephalale has not been included in that top 5 position. So only after their regional conference, sometime in March, will they then be able to begin saying that this is our preferred candidates. And I hear that Tolima Shamaito, one strong person in that particular area, who's currently also a PEC member, is coming through to want to contest some space in the top 5 positions, should he also be emerging from the REC.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to, I guess, kind of track the fallout from Stan Mathabatha speaking at the January 8th statement, saying that Limpopo unequivocally backs Cyril Ramaphosa, and then getting several other officials saying, hold on, we didn't necessarily give a stamp of approval here. The question then becomes, if Stan Mathabatha is not going to be the chair in Limpopo, who is actually the alternative?
Well, now that the Mopani region is one of the big regions with numbers. Are saying that Pule Shai, who's the current regional chairperson, will make a very good chairperson in the continuity and renewal mandate that they are trying to seek at this particular state. And we do know that even as I said earlier, Dr. Namane Dixon Masemola, if he's not contesting the deputy chairpersonship, perhaps he might as well want to enter the ring and contest the provincial chairpersonship in itself. But I think here is also another politics that you and I are not mentioning currently. Should the Stan Mathabatha brigade perhaps make it through to the province and he retains his third term, there's something else that you are looking for, is that they are in support of Stan Mathabatha being a national chairperson. If that also comes into play, should himself, and I hear some alliance with Mpumalanga comes through to support that particular narrative, then sometime in January next year, then you'll start seeing, you might have the deputy chairperson, whoever that is, becoming the acting chairperson, and then they will then take the province into another provincial general council where they'll have to elect a new leadership, and guess who wants to emerge? We hear that Denim Caesar also wants to emerge as national chairperson. So it will be a trail of things that we want to take. But that is what is being said around in the politics, the corridors of Limpopo, and that's what it so seems. Mopani in 2017, they pronounced NDZ and not CR17, and they were a lone voice in that particular province, saying that we want Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma to be the next president and not the CR17, Cyril Ramaphosa at the time, looking at all the politics. So they've always had their own voice, and they've always remained stagnant to it, to say that this is our view, the branches and the region have decided, and this is how we'll be taking forward.
Absolutely. And of course, we still don't know who's going to be contesting against Cyril Ramaphosa. Cyril Ramaphosa himself hasn't come out to say that he wants a second term. So it's all very interesting to track it as it all unfolds. But many people will recognize Denim Caesar's name, right? It's come up in, let's say, not a greater light in the past before.
Yes.
That kind of, call it dark cloud, doesn't seem to be hampering his prospects, according to some people.
It so seems, because he remains a very strong figure in the politics of Limpopo, and he's created alliance with the top 4 people in that province, that it being from the deputy chairpersonship all the way to the treasurer, well, the position that he does occupy. There is that so relationship. Hence, you see now the chairperson and himself all seemingly in alliance, in support of the slate in its current format, and how they will then be propelling Stan Mathabatha to the national, and then he will then also be contesting. The question always remained, even earlier we were talking about it, on whether or not the current structure will allow him to contest, because he has stepped aside. But remember as well, one of the other things that the province and a lot of other people have been talking about is to say Denim Caesar is not suspended. He has stepped aside, unlike Ace Magashule, who has been suspended. So there might be a difference there, to say that he may be able to say, I am available through a letter. There've always been provisions of that in the African National Congress when people are contesting leadership positions. If they are not there, but they have to provide a letter to say, I am available to contest. Will that be allowed? I think Jesse Duarte, as the DSG, has on numerous occasions said that, have clarified that people who have stepped aside don't form part of activities of the African National Congress. But we do know that Limpopo did not want to have Denim Caesar step aside when there were instructions to do so, because Limpopo in itself, they wanted clarity to say the man had already stepped aside about 2 to 3 years ago. Right now, should he step aside again? And I think those are the kind of questions and clarity the province in itself might want to seek from the NEC towards the provincial conference, which will be sometime in June.
Plenty to unpack. Philan Bakhadi, you're watching it all for us. Thanks very much indeed for helping us connect the dots. Philan Bakhadi, of course, tracking the story around the ANC's Vembe and Mopani regions in Limpopo holding their regional general councils today. There's a lot to think about, especially as we count down to December when the ANC's elective conference is set to take place. These are all, if you like, the machinations on the ground before we see it all culminate in the outcome of that elective conference. So stay tuned to Newzroom 405 as we track that story for you. Still ahead for you on the program, we'll also continue to hear tributes for media personality Kuli Roberts, and in fact we'll also look back at her contribution to creating awareness for people living with albinism. That story when we come back. Refugio, hi, this is Ayanda speaking. Are you able to hear us?
Hello, Ayanda. How are you?
I'm okay given the circumstances. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us. I know it's probably also a difficult time for you as well.
Yeah.
So really do appreciate it. But nonetheless, it's great to have you on. We're just testing the line and it all sounds good, so please stand by.
Sure.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. So, media personality and journalist Kuli Roberts, who passed on Wednesday, is being remembered for several things. In fact, in particular, people are remembering an interview that she had with popular podcaster MacG, when she said that she wanted to be remembered for encouraging black people to take care of each other. She also supported people living with albinism as well as those within the LGBTQI+ community. Joining us now to look back at Kuli Roberts' activism and many other things is Refugio Modiselle, who's joining us via our video link. Refugio herself, of course, an actress and model. And it's great to have you on the program, Refugio, albeit under these really difficult circumstances. Also difficult because it's hard to actually speak about Kuli in past tense, especially when you consider just how much life she had in her.
You know what, I think, I don't know, maybe a person has been trying to really play this in their head to really understand and say, is this real? Because I've known Kuli ever since I was 19 years old. She was literally one of those people where I was out and about and she just approached me and said, do you know how gorgeous and beautiful you are? And that's where we sparked our relationship. She's you know, one thing for sure, Kuli lit up a room. I know that she rubbed people up the wrong way, but one thing for sure is that she was one person who loved so deeply. I appreciated the fact that she was very straightforward. A lot of people didn't like that, but I mean, that was just Kuli, and very misunderstood, but more than anything, she was a loving person, extremely loving, with a lot of truth to her. And I'm forever grateful for the role that she had in my life in terms of just loving me for who I am and consistently pushing. I remember when my short film had come out and she was like, baby, I want to do a piece for a British website in the UK so that we can promote this, because I knew her passion for albinism But more than anything, we had like a strange mother and daughter relationship. But she was love and light, and I think the hard part is her, knowing that she's now with Bob Mabena, two people I was really close to. So it's painful.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, yeah. You really do get the sense that some of the greats of our times are no longer with us in the ways that we'd want them to be, for lack of a better term. I am too still making sense of what's taken place in the past week or so. But you've mentioned the fact that her frankness rubbed some people up the wrong way. But I think a lot of other people will actually argue that her frankness is actually what resonated with them, because dare I say,
there's a method to. There was a method to her madness, but you know how society can be very judgmental if you're very vocal about a lot of things, and it really did make her. So there was always like a borderline thing where some people really didn't dislike the fact that she was straightforward, and some people absolutely loved her. But the one thing I think I always resonate with is that she was unapologetic. Really lit up a room unapologetically, so in her own little way, And I think when you're closer, you really, really had to understand this and just love this about her. So it's a tough one. And the children, to Bella and Luan, to Shubi, to Thomas, this is a tough one. It's a blow, a massive one.
Yeah. Of course, I wish we had spent a whole lot more time while she was alive speaking about the activism that she did. A lot of people, sadly, only knowing that she's battled for people living with albinism after her passing. So let's pay tribute to that. I mean, from your own experience, how much did Kuli give of herself to people who are living with albinism?
Kuli, if you notice, she had then changed her headline on Twitter to say, "Stop killing people with albinism," which is a bold statement. A lot of the time we don't have, I'll say inverted commas, people in the norm who support people with albinism. But she was very unapologetic in her stance for it with the pictures that she posted. And every time I saw her as well, there were moments where she'd say, "Babe, we need to do projects together." Unfortunately, we never actively did something full on. But the one thing remained is that Kuli was supportive in everything that I did. She would say to me, "I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of the person that you are." And it just shows she always talked about it to say, I really don't understand why, people with albinism are looked down upon. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's crazy. And we know how Kuli used to talk. Yeah. So it was just like, what matters is your love for me and the fact that you are very supportive of this, and you're very vocal about it. So Kuli didn't flinch from being supportive. She didn't flinch in her being so vocal towards fighting for people with albinism, to say let's also just respect each other as Black people. These people are a part of who we are. Like, just people with albinism are a part of who we are, just as people generally. Let's respect each other as well as Black people. So, yeah. Yeah.
The question, of course, becomes, really difficult, even now, as I mentioned before. The question now becomes how we continue that legacy. I'm sure you might have seen the clip as well, making the rounds on social media, Kuli speaking to Mac G. When Mac G asked about how she'd like to be remembered, her response was, "I actually don't mind not being remembered," and I'm paraphrasing, "but I just want you guys to take care of each other." Says so much about the magnanimity of this individual.
Yes. Kuli honestly took care of the people that she loved. She knows the kind of hate that she also received from people, but honestly, she took care of her own. And I think also that this speaks of, she believed in humanity in such a big way. It's just the way she articulated might not necessarily have been in the convention where everybody is expected to express themselves. But she's right when she says, take care of each other. It spoke about her heart. Kuli had a big heart, a massive heart.
Sure. And it's difficult to actually have that come across in an industry like the one she worked in. I mean, here was an individual who, on the one hand, was very frank, who spoke her mind, no matter how
but she was
it would
a loner
land.
as well. She was a loner.
Yeah. Yeah. She was able to speak her mind on the one hand, but she's also able to be vulnerable, you know, which is something else that I think is lacking in some corners of the entertainment industry. I mean,
Sure.
your reflections on that, about the lessons we could take from an individual who was able to encapsulate these almost diametrically opposed realities.
I think the one lesson that I had taken, just, you know, in her being a part of my life, was just be unapologetic with who you are. Sometimes people like to paint facades, and there's nothing wrong with being authentically self and being able to give of yourself. The only sad part is that the industry can be very, very filthy, very dirty, very unfeeling. And I think if we had a sense of being a lot more human towards each other, it would count a lot. Being a lot more empathetic towards each other, it would count a lot. Giving each other the necessary respect would really count a lot. And I think that's what she leaves behind, is humanity, just having a sense of love and respect amongst each other.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Absolutely. Rafili, I know it's a tough time for you as well, so thank you so much for taking a moment to speak to us, to share your reflections on this individual who without a doubt has touched so many lives. Our condolences to you and your loved ones as we continue, of course, worming our way through this difficult time. Rafili Modiselle, who's a model, activist and an actress in her own right, helping us pay tribute there to Cooley Roberts. Other news worth your attention now. The city of Tshwane is preparing for legal battles as various companies react to their electricity and water supply being cut. Now, the city has actually cut services to big businesses that haven't paid accounts in arrears. Days after services at the Sheraton Hotel were cut, the hotel went to court on an urgent basis, but actually lost that case. Now, for now, the disconnection will continue until such time payments and arrangements have been made with the city. The municipality is owed over 1.5 billion rand by big businesses and some residents. And Tshwane Mayor Randall Williams says businesses and consumers must ensure that they settle their accounts or, in fact, face disconnection. He says the municipality will not allow consumers to use their services without paying. The JMPD has issued a statement distancing itself from a flyer and messages during the rounds in Alexandra, allegedly issued by the Alexandra Dubula movement. In that statement, it's alleged that the JMPD will join other law enforcement agencies to peacefully remove illegal street vendors on pavements and stalls in Alex tomorrow under the banner Alex Operation Fiela. In fact, the Metro Police Department says that as much as it enforces street bylaws, it's always done this within the confines of the law itself. The JMPD is urging people to refrain from circulating this false information.
The Johannesburg Metropolitan Police Department distances itself from flyers and messages that are on social media with the name #Alex Operation Fiela, allegedly issued by the Alexandra Dudula movement. This comes amid a flyer alleging that a peaceful operation to remove illegal street vendors on pavements and stalls would happen on Sunday, 13 February 2022 in Alexandra. JMPD, SAPS, CPF, Save Alex and Sanko have been noted on this flyer. The JMPD wants to make it clear that it's not supporting and it's not part of this operation. JMPD does indeed enforce the City of Johannesburg's bylaws, especially informal trading bylaws, but this is done within the ambit of the law. JMPD urges people to refrain from circulating false messages citing that JMPD is part of this operation, and it appeals to the community to take extra precautions when dealing with such false information.
Still ahead for you on the program, we continue taking stock of President Cyril Ramaphosa's sixth State of the Nation address. When we come back, reaction from an LGBTI plus civil society organization. They've been mentioning what they want from the president, but do they feel heard? That response next. Oh, okay. Cool. Who am I testing with first, Gary? Hey, Katejo, it's Ayanda speaking. Are you able to hear us?
Hey, good morning, Ayanda. Yes, I can hear you.
Lovely. Please stand by.
All right, no problem.
No, Nolwazi. Okay. It's 1:30. This is Newzroom Afrika. Here's a quick reminder of our top stories. Disturbing images of the Durban and Coastal Mental Health Institute in KZN have emerged. Now, these images show a dire state of affairs with a leaking roof, several broken toilets, and none of the air conditioning units working. The city of Tshwane has warned defaulters to pay up or face their electricity and water supply interrupted. Of late, the city is on a drive to recoup more than 1.5 billion rand that's owed to them. On the continent, in Madagascar, the death toll from cyclone Batsirai has now risen to 120, with thousands left homeless. And the big story making international headlines, U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to hold a phone discussion with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. Hello again, and thanks for staying with us. So the COVID-19 pandemic has meant that many people lost their jobs and sources of income. In fact, it's led to people having to make some kind of their own opportunities, some of whom actually starting small businesses. One such man is Thando Makubu from Soweto, who we're told actually saved his 350 Rand grant in order to start an ice cream business in Soweto. The Gauteng Department of Economic Development has also been doing work with SMMEs to try boost the local economy. Well, our reporter Katlego Lekhodi decided to follow up on the story. He joins us now live for an update about what we know about Thando. And Katlego, it's great to see you. Perhaps as a start, I mean, how important is support for small businesses?
Well, Ayanda, support is very, very important. And of course, the Gauteng provincial government has been hard at work to support small enterprises. You know that COVID-19, as you rightly stated there, has created some sort of a situation where a lot of people lost their sources of income and have had to come up with a creative means to just start businesses on the ground. And they are in need of support. And we are going to be bringing into the conversation one person, that being the CEO, Sakisa Mqaga. He's the CEO of the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller. This is an entity that falls under the Gauteng Department of Economic Development that will be letting us in on the work that they are doing on the ground, they've been doing on the ground, especially now around COVID-19. So thank you very much for joining us on Newsroom 405. A lot of people are just being encouraged to start their own businesses on the ground. How important is it, I'm throwing it to you, that these businesses are supported, and how important is it around this time that the economy is boosted through SMMEs?
No, thank you, Katlego. I think, as you say, one thing we all know about small businesses is that they have the capability to create jobs. Big corporates, they reach a scale where they can expand without increasing much of their operating costs. But if you start your own business, you're likely to either sustain yourself or employ other people. So it's a great opportunity. And really for us, we're there to provide financial support, either in the form of a loan or a grant. And we can then help those who need equipment, who need business plans. And as you say, during COVID, we've seen a lot of activity, some people going out of business, but also new opportunities coming up.
So just let us in on the work that you do as a Gauteng Enterprise Propeller, and we understand that you're an entity of the Gauteng Economic Development Department. What can people look forward to when they approach your office for assistance, especially small businesses?
Thank you again. We have 6 offices across the province and online. So on our website, gep.co.za, you can apply. And there, as I say, you can apply for financial support, which is a loan, depending on where your business is. It could be a startup, it could be a business that wants to grow. We've now put a bit of focus on contract finance. People get contracts and require working capital to deliver on those contracts. So that we've been paying a lot of attention to. but also during the July unrest of last year, we had a relief package that we had put together, which was 50% loan and 50% grant, and there are some businesses even here in Soweto that we supported.
One such man is Thando Makubu, and we know very well that he's one person that was mentioned in the State of the Nation address by President Cyril Ramaphosa of just having saved up his grant to start a business. And COVID-19 has actually led to a lot of people opening small businesses. As an office, have you seen, have you been inundated with calls from people on the ground to just offer assistance? And how can you come through for people like your Thando Makubu going forward?
No, definitely. I mean, there's been a lot of applications. We generally get more applications than we can provide financing for because we have limited pool of funds. So we've partnered with other entities now like IDC where we're increasing the pool of funds which we can make available. But the volume has been a bit big on those applications. And businesses like these, for example, may be a business that is viable with its own cost structure, but maybe to take it to the next level, it needs machinery or equipment, and we can then finance that equipment, whether it is a loan or part loan and part grant or fully grant, because it may not be viable on his own to buy that equipment. It may take him out of business, but if then he gets that kind of equipment, it may make him produce locally, maybe employ one additional person. So we always look first, of course, business viability has got to be a sustainable business, but the other bit is what development impact is it going to have.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
That is Saki Zamxaka. He's the CEO of the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller, who is just letting us in on a whole lot of opportunities through their offices that are available for small, medium, and macro enterprise businesses on the ground that might be wanting to start a business and to approach an entity and get government support. So Gauteng Enterprise Propeller under the Gauteng Department of Economic Development is there for you, and they are saying as well that they are going to be doing a lot of work in helping out small enterprise and medium businesses here on the ground. So we're going to be spending most of the day with the man himself, Thando, who's going to be letting us in on innovative ideas even going forward, and what he has to encourage small businesses alike to just be sustainable in the midst of COVID-19 and just to be in existence even in futures to come. It's back to you in studio, Ayanda.
Live to us there from Soweto. Thanks very much indeed. Plenty said about this business on social media. I guess it will help us better place it throughout the course of the day. Let's speak to a related issue to do with SONA. So, as you know, of course, Thursday saw President Cyril Ramaphosa deliver his 6th State of the Nation address. In case you missed it, SONA is actually intended to outline key government plans to make the country, in fact, function effectively in the year ahead and to set some kind of tone, if you like, for public compact. Now, civil society organizations and activists say that they're disappointed that President Cyril Ramaphosa once again seemingly ignored the LGBTIQ+ community by failing to address their needs explicitly. Well, let's get your reaction to that SONA address. Bring in the media manager for organization IRANTI, that's Nolwazi Tusini, who joins us via our video link. And Nolwazi, it's great to see you. Thanks very much, as always, for making time to speak to us. IRANTI, interestingly enough, had actually been part of a campaign in the lead-up to the State of the Nation address, where you asked several members of the queer community to express what they want the president to actually say. Post SONA, do you feel heard? Oh, no, it appears that you might have, apologies for interrupting you, it appears you might have muted yourself. I hope it's not an issue on our side. Do you just want to check if your mic is unmuted?
I think it is now.
There you are. There you go. Let's start your response from the beginning.
So my response was that no, of course we do not feel heard, because this is just yet another SONA where the LGBTIQ community was not explicitly mentioned. The issues facing the community were not addressed by the president at all in this speech, despite our hashtag Queer SONA digital campaign, which we ran the entire week, actually the 3 days preceding the State of Nation address. And so we don't feel heard at all. We had sent our press statement as well to the presidency, directly to his media team, and did not get any kind of response. And so what that tells us, as far as we're concerned, as a civil society organization working with LGBTIQ persons, is that we continue to essentially remain invisible to the state and remain invisible to the highest office in the land.
Yeah, and this is on the back of, concerns being raised at the launch of the census in this country that LGBTIQ people appear to be erased in some respects. I mean, for people who are struggling to connect the dots about why it's important for us to continue raising this issue, what's your response? And perhaps you can help us paint that picture by just outlining the plight of queer people in our country.
So here's the thing, Ayanda, is that if the president does not think of the LGBTIQ community as important enough to mention in his State of Nation address, what the message, as far as we're concerned, that sends out to the rest of the state and the government that he leads, is that it's okay to ignore our community, that it's okay to take a long time to address the myriad of issues that LGBTIQ people are facing in this country. Census 2022, for example, is one of those issues where the Census 2022 questionnaire does not enumerate the LGBTIQ community in any meaningful way, which is to say that the questions that are on the census, first of all, ask about sex and then only give two binary options, which is male or female, completely erasing the intersex community and intersex persons, and then compounds this by not asking about gender, which is whether or not you're a man or woman, which then leaves transgender people out of the conversation. And the problem with this is that they then use, in the census, they use the data from the sex question to make determinations and assumptions about gender, as, for example, how many women are employed or unemployed in South Africa, and then resources are allocated accordingly. Now, part of the problem with this is that queer people, the LGBTIQ community, is not only marginalized, but is currently facing violence and human rights abuses in this country. What we were saying in our press statement in response to SONA is that, for example, children in this country, children as young as infants, are being subjected to intersex genital mutilation, which is essentially unnecessary, unconsensual, and harmful genital surgeries to make their bodies go into line with the binary of male and female, instead of just leaving these children alone, because these surgeries are not necessary for their bodies. Second of all, what we know for sure is that children are facing a wide range of discrimination in schools and in high schools, which means that they either end up being excluded from schools, dropping out from schools, facing depression, wide range of mental health issues. And of course, as we know, in the last year, in 2021, we had 20 queer individuals being killed under circumstances that suggested that they were killed because of their sexual orientation and their gender identity. Yeah. And to this day, we have not seen any movement to stop these kinds of killings. And so these are just examples of some of the issues that the community is facing. And so when we say that we need the president to attend to these issues, it's not because we're wanting attention, as some people have accused us on social media. It's simply because it is a matter of life and death. Yeah. It is a matter of dignity for the community.
Quite literally. There's no overstating that. You know, the president actually took some time explaining to those who are watching that he wants to create some kind of consensus. He spoke about a social compact, so to speak. And we know that for social compacts to work, you need buy-in from society. But it's difficult to get buy-in if people feel overlooked, if they feel erased.
You know, the LGBTIQ community and LGBTIQ persons have been contributing to this country in various ways for many, many years throughout the history of this country, and we will continue to do that. And so, yes, we will participate in the social compact because we do believe in the future of this country. But the fundamental thing is this, is that we have been left out of this social compact because the social compact does not directly address the issues facing the queer community. And as much as we will continue to be contributing members of society and citizens, we cannot help but feel a sense of sadness, a deep sense of disappointment, that even as we continue to contribute to the society, the highest office in the land, the head of state, does not see us important enough to speak directly to us, to attend to our issues while we are still alive and breathing and can contribute to the society, and rather addresses LGBTIQ issues when one of us has been brutally killed, as a Freedom Day speech, for example. And so it is saddening and maddening, but we will participate in the social compact because we believe in the future of this country, and we believe that everyone must actively participate. That does not mean that we will keep quiet about the issues faced by the queer community. That does not mean that we will stop advocating for those issues, but we will continue to be contributing members of the society because we understand how important it is. And we hope we get to a point where the head of state values our contribution and our buy-in, such that he will begin to publicly address our issues, and most importantly, put action and resources behind taking care of the various things that need to be rectified in order for queer people to live the lives that are promised in our Constitution.
Absolutely. We look forward to the day when queer people feel heard at a state level. Nolwazi, thanks very much indeed for always helping us shine a spotlight on this issue. Really do appreciate your time this morning. Nolwazi Tusini is the Communications Manager for IRANTI. Still ahead for you on the program, a look at news-making headlines on the continent and across the globe. There's plenty taking place in your world. I'll get you those details when we come back. Hello again. If you've just joined us, you're right in time for news making headlines on the continent now. The Zimbabwean government has suspended more than 100,000 teachers for not reporting for duty when schools opened on the 7th of February, and in fact demanding a pay rise. In fact, the Minister for Primary and Secondary Education, that's Evelyn Ndlovu, announced that decision. Teachers want an increase in salaries from the current equivalent of just over 3,000 rand to at least 8,000 rand per month. Newzroom Afrika's Kolisani Ngube has more.
More than 130,000 teachers have been suspended for absenting themselves from work for at least 3 days while protesting against low salaries. The educators say their current remuneration is not enough to send their families.
We are not only shocked but disappointed that government has decided to punish its workers purely because they've asked for a review of their salaries. Our analysis says 10% of teachers were turning up for duty, which means that if this country is 150,000 teachers, it means 15,000 were only turning up for duty. That means 135,000 stand suspended. And in our view, it's tragic on two fronts. One, that the person who announced the suspension is not legally qualified to do the same, because the teachers are under the direct employ of the Public Service Commission, which obviously means that it was erroneous for the Minister of Education to suspend teachers. But we know the law. These guys can come up and circumvent the law and make that particular position to subsist.
When schools opened on Monday, only 10% of the country's educators reported for duty. The government then resolved to increase the salaries by 20%, which the teachers described as a mockery.
The requests made by the teachers are justified. They are very legitimate because the teachers have not asked for the sky or the moon. Teachers have said, pay us a salary that was being paid in October 2018. We are not asking for the moon. We are simply saying, take us where we were. In government, they said they don't have the money. But they are the same people that are telling us that they have a national surplus. The levels of opulence and extravagance that we see in this country are shocking.
But government says the welfare of its workers will be reviewed time and again. The government then proceeded to threaten the workers with disciplinary measures should they fail to report for duty. The men at the helm of the country's coffers say improving the welfare of public workers is a process.
As government, we are committed to gradually increase the salaries of civil servants. We are acutely aware that there is a need to increase the buying power, which is what I explained earlier. So we'll keep increasing the conditions of service for civil servants, looking at monetary benefits for a start, which is direct salary, and then also the non-monetary benefits. Non-monetary benefits pertains issues such as housing. If we take the example of teachers, we said we're committed to building 35,000 houses over 5 years. That just takes time. And then for the rest of the civil servants, we're committed again to reinstituting our guarantee scheme, where government provides a guarantee, and then a civil servant or employee that are able to work with the building site on the back of that guarantee to then work towards a full home ownership.
Meanwhile, another union representing the teachers has filed an urgent High Court application demanding that suspension of the educators be reversed while talks for a better pay are ongoing. For Newzroom Afrika, on channel 405, I am Kosani Ngulwe in Harare, Zimbabwe.
So the only community hospital for patients that are living with advanced HIV and AIDS in Bangui has brought much hope to patients in the Central African Republic. In fact, the hospital, which is supported by Doctors Without Borders, has 68 beds and a further 15 for intensive care. Some stats for you now. HIV affects around 110,000 of the country's 5.4 million population. But a lack of testing means that many affected people are not counted.
Many with HIV in the Central African Republic are unaware of their status, as the country has no free HIV testing. Unfortunately, most patients learn about their HIV status very late and only begin their treatment at an advanced stage of illness.
C'est un des seuls pays où il n'y a pas de service de dépistage gratuit pour le VIH. Donc les patients connaissent leur statut très tard, quand ils sont déjà dans un état avancé de la maladie. Et il y en a qui viennent à l'hôpital ici parce qu'ils savent que c'est aussi un des seuls endroits où il y a les services de soins pour le VIH avancé qui sont gratuits. Notre taux de mortalité, c'est entre 10 et 15%, ce qui n'est pas mal. Franchement, avec l'état de gravité où les patients arrivent, on a des patients qui décèdent le même jour, parfois ou dans quelques heures d'arriver aux urgences.
The charity, Doctors Without Borders, has brought hope to many who nearly succumbed to the deadly disease.
Donc, mais quand même, auto café, MSF, Biban Joni so, MSF Asaga, le Muma Boko Nambi Mingi, Nayati Soin so, le Soyembi, le Nambi Yoro, Assassin Biwara Santé, bi répondre.
Most HIV patients in the country have to deal with the social stigma surrounding the illness. Widespread hostility forces